He was always a good friend and a role model. I like that for a black man in this kind of business because he had his father, a presence many young men never experience. The world woke up to heartbreak. Malcolm Jamal Warner, a man whose smile lit up millions of childhoods, whose voice carried warmth and familiarity, was gone. Found lifeless in the waters of Costa Rica, news outlets called it a tragic accident. But to those who knew him, nothing about this felt like an accident. Fans flooded the internet with tributes, old clips, and memories that brought tears to strangers' eyes. Hollywood legends spoke his name with a heaviness that couldn't be hidden. But in the middle of this wave of grief, one silence was louder than every tear, every cry, every prayer. His wife, not a word, not a photograph, not even a trembling sentence on social media. She vanished as if her life with him had been erased overnight. And then came the voice that would shatter the quiet. His mother, Pamela Warner, a grieving mother whose eyes had already seen too much loss. She stood before cameras, her voice shaking, her hands trembling, but her resolve unbreakable. My son's death was not what they say it was. Weeks later, a truth too heavy for a mother's heart to carry emerged. A $200 million life insurance policy, hidden, secret, unknown even to his closest family. And in the days after Malcolm's death, the entire fortune transferred quietly, without delay, into his wife's personal account. Pamela's grief turned into suspicion, her suspicion into war, and now her war into a desperate fight for justice. Because this is no longer just about a son lost to the sea. It's about whether the man the world loved was taken from it. And if Pamela is right, the truth, when it comes, will break us all. The waves were calm that morning. The sun had just begun to rise over the sparkling waters of Costa Rica, painting the sky in soft shades of gold and pink. No one knew that those waves would soon carry the weight of the world's grief. When the news broke, it didn't seem real. Malcolm Jamal Warner, the man whose presence had been a comfort to millions, whose laughter had once echoed in our living rooms, was gone. No long illness, no warning, no chance to say goodbye, just gone. Reporters called it an accident. A tragic drowning, they said, their voices smooth and detached, as though the word tragic could ever capture the way a mother's heart shatters when she gets that phone call. Tributes poured in within minutes. Fans shared old photos, videos, memories of meeting him, of the way he made them feel like they mattered. Actors and artists who had worked alongside him spoke in choked voices, their eyes wet, their sentences breaking mid-thought. The internet became a shrine to his memory, every post soaked in sorrow. But amid the ocean of grief, there was an absence, a hollow space that screamed louder than any cry. His wife. Where was she? Why wasn't she there holding his mother's hand? Why wasn't she speaking to his fans, thanking them, or even just asking for privacy? She wasn't in the photographs from the memorial. She wasn't posting online. She wasn't anywhere. It was as if she had evaporated from existence the moment Malcolm's heart stopped beating. Then came the crack in the silence. It was Pamela Warner, Malcolm's mother. A woman whose love for her son was visible in every glance, every touch, every proud word she had ever spoken about him. Now standing before a wall of flashing cameras, she looked smaller somehow, the kind of small that comes when grief drains the light from your bones. Her voice trembled, but her words cut through the noise like glass. My son's death was not an accident. The air changed. Suddenly, the story wasn't about a tragic loss. It was about doubt, about secrets, about the possibility that something far darker had happened in those waters. Pamela spoke of Malcolm's childhood, how he had been swimming almost before he could walk, how the water had been his safe place. She couldn't believe that the sea could take him like that. She said she had questions no one seemed willing to answer. Weeks passed. The news cycle began to fade. The public started to move on, but Pamela didn't. She dug, she asked, she demanded. And then one day, the truth she had been searching for slammed into her life like a freight train. It came from Malcolm's own lawyer, a man who had known him for decades. He told her about the life insurance policy. $200 million hidden from public knowledge, hidden from her. A sum so vast it didn't even sound real, like something out of a movie. Pamela sat frozen as he explained. Malcolm's wife was the sole beneficiary. And here's the part that made Pamela's blood run cold. The payout had been processed within days of his death. No delays, no legal hurdles, just an immediate transfer, straight into his wife's personal account. Pamela felt the grief in her chest harden into something else, something heavier. She confronted her daughter-in-law. She wanted answers, explanations, anything that could make sense of what she had just learned. But what she got was silence followed by a storm. The confrontation erupted into a fight so fierce that Pamela ordered her out of the family home. The woman who had once called her mom walked away without looking back. Pamela's tears dried that day. She no longer saw herself as a grieving mother. She was now an investigator, a soldier, a voice for her son. She hired lawyers. She combed through bank records, contracts, emails, anything she could get her hands on. And the more she looked, the less sense it made. Witness statements didn't line up. The official timeline had gaps. Phone records showed calls that had been made and deleted. The insurance documents were dated in ways that didn't add up. This was no longer just about a mother's suspicion. This was beginning to look like something far, far more sinister. Pamela went to the FBI. She handed them everything she had found, her voice steady, but her hands shaking. She didn't care how high this went or who it implicated. She wanted the truth. Word got out, the media swarmed, hashtags exploded across social media. I'm Justice for Moulter $1 million widow. People picked sides. Some saw Pamela as a warrior for justice, refusing to be silenced. Others painted her as a heartbroken woman, letting grief twist her into seeing shadows where none existed. But shadows have a way of hiding in plain sight. The FBI's involvement changed everything. What had been a family tragedy was now a potential criminal investigation. And as the agents began digging, more whispers started to surface. Whispers about arguments, about financial trouble, about a marriage that might not have been as perfect as it looked on camera. Still, nothing was certain. There was no smoking gun, no undeniable proof, just a mountain of suspicions and a silence from the one person who might hold all the answers. And then came the footage. Someone, no one knows who, leaked security camera video from a small dock in Costa Rica. It was grainy, the kind of footage where faces blur and details are swallowed by shadows. But you could see Malcolm walking toward a boat, and you could see someone else behind him, a figure moving quickly, almost too quickly. The video ended abruptly, too abruptly. The internet went wild. People slowed it down, zoomed in, analyzed every pixel. Some swore they recognized the figure's walk. Others said it was impossible to tell. Pamela didn't need confirmation. She had already made up her mind. For her, it wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about making sure the world knew the truth, about ensuring that Malcolm's death wasn't reduced to a cold headline and a forgotten news segment. She would fight until her last breath. And somewhere, far from the flashing lights and public chaos, a woman with $200 million in her account kept her silence. The question isn't just what happened in those final moments. The question is, how far would someone go for a fortune that big? And if Pamela is right, how close is the truth to finally being revealed? The footage was only 8 seconds long, 8 seconds that tore the internet in half. It showed Malcolm walking alone toward the edge of the dock, a quiet stride in the early evening light. And then that shadow, a figure trailing behind him, just far enough to be out of reach, just close enough to follow every step. Pamela watched the clip over and over. Every replay pulled the breath from her lungs. She swore she recognized the way that figure moved, the tilt of the head, the slight hesitation in the left leg. She didn't say the name aloud, but in her heart she already knew. The FBI didn't confirm anything. They never do, not in the middle of an active case. But the questions they started at, they pulled travel manifests and cross-referenced them with hotel check-ins. The paper trail was long, and somewhere in it they believed was the truth. And then came the witness. A local fisherman, weathered by the sea, claimed he saw something the night Malcolm died. At first, he stayed quiet. He didn't want trouble. But when the story began making global headlines, his guilt grew heavier. He told investigators he saw Malcolm on the dock, and he saw someone else there too, arguing with him.